What I'm about to tell you might challenge everything you've been taught about being a good man. Most men believe that when a woman cries, their job is simple. Fix it. Stop it. Apologize. Do whatever it takes to restore peace. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of the biggest mistakes a man can make in love happen in the exact moment a woman's tears begin to fall. Because tears don't just reveal her emotions. They reveal your strength. In that moment, you are being measured. Not by how fast you solve the problem, not by how sweet your words sound, but by how steady you remain under emotional pressure. Weak men react. Average men negotiate. Intelligent men stay centered. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what a smart, self-mastered man absolutely refuses to do when a woman cries, and why mastering this changes everything about your relationships. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where lessons about love will help you better understand this complex emotion. In today's video, we will learn together about smart men absolutely never do this when women cry. These are things that can change the way you perceive love in life. Be prepared because the secrets and insights you are about to discover may make you look back at yourself and the relationships around you. Before starting, find a quiet space, put on your headphones and relax. Let your mind completely immerse in these shares and enjoy every wonderful moment. Are you ready to discover new things about love? Let's start this journey with us right now. Part 1. When she cries, the weak man reacts. The intelligent man remains centered. I'm going to say something that most men are afraid to admit. A woman's tears can control you, if you haven't mastered yourself. I didn't always understand this. There was a time in my life when a woman crying in front of me felt like an emergency alarm. My chest tightened. My mind rushed. My voice softened. I would apologize even when I wasn't wrong. I would surrender positions I believed in. I would promise things I couldn't sustain. I thought that was love. It wasn't. It was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being the bad guy. Fear of discomfort. Fear of her emotional intensity. A stoic man does not fear emotion, his own or hers. But an untrained man, he panics. Let me tell you the first thing an intelligent man absolutely does not do when a woman cries. He does not surrender his frame. What most men do wrong. When she cries, most men immediately move into one of three reactions. They become defensive. They become apologetic. They become rescuers. All three are emotional reactions. None are grounded. Crying is powerful. Not because women are manipulative by default. But because tears activate something deep inside a man, the instinct to fix, protect, and restore harmony. But here is the truth most men don't understand. Not every tear is a crisis. Not every tear is your fault. Not every tear requires surrender. Emotions are waves. Character is the shore. If the shore collapses every time the wave hits, what kind of stability is that? A stoic man understands something fundamental. He is responsible for his behavior. Not for regulating someone else's emotional storms. The Stoic perspective. Let's bring this back to Stoicism for a moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. When a woman cries, most men imagine consequences. She's going to leave. She thinks I'm heartless. This is my fault. I need to fix this immediately. But those are stories. A disciplined man separates what is happening from what he is imagining. What is happening? She is crying. That is all. Not. She is leaving. Not. I am failing. Not. I must surrender. Just. She is crying. When you remove the narrative, you regain power. Emotional containment is strength. Here is something I learned through years of relationships. A woman does not feel safe with a man who collapses when she expresses emotion. She may feel temporarily comforted, but she does not feel anchored. Women test emotional stability unconsciously. Not maliciously. Not strategically. But instinctively. When emotion rises in the room, she observes. Does he stay steady? Does he stay calm? Does he remain present? Or does he dissolve? If you panic when she cries, you signal this. I cannot handle emotional intensity. And if you cannot handle intensity, you cannot lead. Stoicism in love does not mean coldness. It means containment. It means saying, internally, I see the emotion. I am not threatened by it. What intelligent men absolutely do not do. Let me make this crystal clear. When a woman cries, a smart man does not interrupt her to defend himself. Beg for forgiveness out of fear. Make dramatic promises. Blame her for being emotional. Shut down emotionally. Try to logic her out of feelings. Raise his voice. Over-explain himself. All of these behaviors reveal insecurity. And insecurity is far more damaging than whatever caused the tears. The intelligent man does something radical. He slows down. He breathes. He watches. He listens. And most importantly, he does not move until he understands. The power of stillness. Stillness is terrifying to someone who operates from anxiety. But stillness is magnetic to someone who operates from grounded strength. There were moments in my past when a woman cried in front of me and I said nothing for 10 seconds. Just eye contact. Just presence. You would be surprised what happens in that silence. The emotional wave often softens. Because she no longer feels like she has to escalate to be heard. Weak men try to control emotion. Strong men allow it. Allowing emotion does not mean agreeing with accusations. It means not reacting impulsively. You are not her nervous system. Here is a hard truth. You are not responsible for regulating another adult's emotions. You are responsible for your tone, your posture, your words, your boundaries. That's it. If she is crying because she is hurt, you can listen. If she is crying because she is overwhelmed, you can support. But if she is crying to push you into submission, and yes, sometimes that happens, your steadiness is the only thing that protects both of you from a toxic pattern. Once a man learns that tears can change his decisions, he becomes trainable. And when a man becomes trainable, he loses authority. Authority in love is not domination. Let me clarify something before you misunderstand me. Authority is not control. Authority is not intimidation. Authority is not emotional coldness. Authority is self-mastery. If your decisions change every time emotion intensifies, you are not leading, you are reacting. And reactive men do not build stable relationships. A Stoic man asks himself in that moment, am I about to respond from fear, or from principle? That question alone changes everything. The first discipline. So here is the first discipline of the intelligent man when a woman cries. He regulates himself before he responds to her. He checks his breathing. He relaxes his jaw. He softens his shoulders. He lowers his tone. He does not match her emotional level. He stays one level calmer. That is containment. That is strength. That is love without surrender. Love is not only about happy moments, but also about challenges that help us realize our inner strength. It is through difficulties that we learn patience, tolerance, and how to love without losing ourselves. This is also the reason why I share stories here, so that you can find calmness and wisdom in your journey of love. If you feel these words touch you, please take a second to click like to spread this message. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe with the notification bell, to always be the first to receive new shares. Don't forget to leave a comment below, share your feelings or a lesson you learned after listening to this story. Each line you share is a way for us to connect and accompany each other. Now, get ready, because the next part will bring you even deeper insights. Part 2, The intelligent man does not try to fix her emotions. Let me confess something I had to learn the hard way. Trying to fix a woman when she cries is one of the fastest ways to slowly kill attraction. Most men believe they are being loving when they jump into solution mode. She cries. You analyze. She vents. You provide steps. She expresses pain. You give advice. You think you are helping. But often, you are doing something else entirely. You are trying to escape discomfort. And women can feel the difference. The hidden ego behind fixing. When a woman cries, a man who lacks emotional depth feels this internal pressure. I need to make this stop. But why? Is it because she needs solutions? Or because you can't tolerate the intensity? Let me be blunt. Many men try to fix emotions not out of love, but out of anxiety. They want peace restored quickly. They want tension removed. They want control back. So they offer logic. But emotion does not respond to logic in its peak state. And when she feels unheard, she escalates. Now the crying becomes louder. The accusations sharper. The frustration deeper. And the man thinks. She's impossible. No. She feels unseen. The Stoic error most men make. Stoicism is often misunderstood. It is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery. Epictetus taught that we should focus only on what is within our control. You cannot control her tears, her feelings, her past wounds, her emotional triggers. You can control your presence, your listening, your responses, your boundaries. Trying to fix her feelings is trying to control what is not yours. And when you attempt that repeatedly, two things happen. She feels invalidated. You feel exhausted. This creates resentment on both sides. Why? Fixing kills attraction. Here's something most men don't want to hear. When you constantly try to fix her emotions, you subtly position her as fragile. And attraction does not grow in fragility. She does not want a therapist. She does not want a technician. She does not want a problem solver. In that moment, she wants presence. There is a difference between solving and holding space. Solving says, "This is broken. Let me repair it." Holding space says, "I trust you to move through this. I'm here." One feels superior. The other feels grounded. Women are highly sensitive to emotional hierarchy. If she feels you are trying to manage her emotions, she unconsciously feels small. And no woman feels deep attraction towards someone who treats her like a malfunction. A story from my past. Years ago, I dated a woman who would cry whenever we argued. Every single time. My instinct was to fix it. I would say, Okay, I'll change. Let's not fight. You're right. Tell me what to do." You know what happened? She lost respect. Not immediately. But slowly. Because she realized something before I did. My stability depended on her emotional state. If she was calm, I was strong. If she cried, I collapsed. That is not leadership. That is dependency. Eventually she told me something that changed me. I don't want you to agree with me because I'm crying. I want you to stand on what you believe. That was the moment I understood. Strength is attractive. Panic is not. What intelligent men do instead. When a woman cries, the intelligent man asks internally. Is she asking for a solution, or is she asking to be understood? 9 times out of 10, it's the second. Understanding requires eye contact, silence, minimal interruption, a steady tone. Sometimes the most powerful sentence is, I hear you. Not, here's what we should do. Not, you're overreacting. Not, calm down. Just, I hear you. You would be shocked how often the emotional intensity drops when she feels acknowledged. Because tears are often a signal. Are you with me, or against me? When she feels you are with her, the storm settles naturally. The discipline of restraint. Do you know how difficult it is for a man to sit still while someone he loves is crying? It challenges his protector instinct. But maturity is knowing when to act, and when to contain. Seneca wrote about the danger of reacting in anger before understanding. The same applies to emotional urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. Restraint creates clarity. An intelligent man does not rush to defend, solve, rescue, retreat. He listens fully before he moves. And sometimes, he does not move at all. The subtle test. Here's something that may be uncomfortable, but real. Sometimes, not always, tears test your emotional steadiness. Not consciously, but instinctively. She may push emotionally to see. Will he abandon himself? Will he crumble? Will he change his standards? If your boundaries disappear when emotions rise, you train her to use emotion as leverage. Not because she is evil, but because humans repeat what works. If tears get you to surrender every time, that pattern becomes the language of the relationship. And over time, respect erodes. Love without overcorrection. Let me be clear. Not fixing does not mean neglecting. If you genuinely hurt her, take responsibility. If you were wrong, own it. If she needs comfort, offer it. But do not overcorrect out of fear. There is a difference between compassion and capitulation. The intelligent man gives compassion. He does not surrender his principles. The second discipline. So here is the second discipline when a woman cries. Do not rush to solve what needs to be felt. Emotion often needs to move through the body before logic can land. If you interrupt that process with premature solutions, you create more friction. Presence first. Solutions later. Understanding first. Adjustment second. Calm first. Correction after. Part 3, the intelligent man does not argue with emotion. Let me give you a hard truth that took me years to accept. You cannot win an argument against emotion. You can win a debate. You can win a negotiation. You can win a logical discussion. But you will never win against raw emotion. And when a woman cries, you are not in a courtroom. You are in the presence of a nervous system in activation. The mistake most men make at this stage is simple. They start arguing facts. Logic is powerless against activated emotion. When she says, "You never listen to me," the untrained man replies, "That's not true. I listened yesterday. And last week. And remember when. Now we are counting evidence. Now we are defending a case. Now we are escalating." But when someone says, "You never," they are not presenting data. They are expressing pain. Arguing the facts misses the point. And when you miss the point, she feels even more alone. That loneliness turns into more emotion. More tears. More intensity. More chaos. And you stand there thinking, why is she not being reasonable? Because reason comes after regulation. Not before. The Stoic misinterpretation. Many men who discover Stoicism misunderstand it at this moment. They think being Stoic means correcting exaggeration, maintaining intellectual superiority, dismissing emotional language as irrational. That is ego disguised as philosophy. Marcus Aurelius did not teach domination through reason. He taught self-command. Self-command means you do not get pulled into emotional turbulence. But it also means you do not weaponize logic to overpower someone who is emotionally overwhelmed. There is a difference between calm strength and cold superiority. One builds respect. The other builds distance. What's really happening when she cries? When emotion rises, the brain shifts. The logical centers reduce activity. The emotional centers increase activation. This is not weakness. This is biology. If you try to debate someone in that state, you are pouring gasoline on a fire and complaining that it burns brighter. Instead of arguing the words, understand the need underneath. Behind most emotional statements are deeper fears. I don't feel important. I don't feel chosen. I don't feel safe. I don't feel understood. When you argue surface-level words, you ignore the root. And the root keeps crying. The ego trap. Arguing with emotion is often about ego. You want to protect your image. You want to defend your integrity. You want to prove you're not the villain. But here's what maturity looks like. You can let a temporary exaggeration pass without correcting it immediately. That does not mean you accept false accusations. It means you choose timing. Timing is everything. When the storm is raging, you anchor. You do not lecture the wind. A personal lesson. I remember a night years ago. We were arguing. She was crying. She said, "You don't care about me." That sentence hit my pride like a knife. I cared deeply. I sacrificed. I showed up. I tried. So I responded defensively. How can you say that? After everything I've done? And that's when it got worse. Because now it wasn't about her pain. It was about my wounded ego. The fight lasted hours. Do you know what would have ended it in minutes? Not agreement. Not surrender. Just this. It sounds like you're feeling alone right now. That sentence acknowledges emotion without accepting distortion. It holds space without collapsing truth. That is power. The discipline of emotional translation. Intelligent men translate emotion. Instead of reacting to, "You never care." They hear, "I don't feel cared for right now." Instead of reacting to, "You always ignore me." They hear, "I feel overlooked." Translation changes everything. Because now you are responding to the real message, not the dramatic packaging. And when she feels understood at the core, the intensity drops. Why you must not compete with emotion. Some men escalate. She cries louder. They speak louder. She gets intense. They get sharper. Now it becomes a competition of dominance. Two nervous systems fighting for control. No one wins. In that dynamic, attraction erodes. Respect fractures. Safety disappears. A Stoic man refuses to compete emotionally. He does not mirror chaos. He stabilizes it. Silence is sometimes stronger than speech. There are moments when the best response is not a counterargument. It is silence. Not cold silence. Not punishment silence. Grounded silence. The kind that says, I am not threatened by this wave. You maintain eye contact. You breathe steadily. You let her finish fully. You do not interrupt mid-sentence to correct vocabulary. You wait. When she is done, you respond to the core. Not the exaggeration. Not the accusation. The core. Boundaries still exist. Now let's be clear about something important. Not arguing with emotion does not mean tolerating disrespect. If emotion turns into insults, character attacks, manipulative threats, you do not argue. You calmly state, I'm willing to talk about what you're feeling. I'm not willing to be insulted. Then you pause. That is authority without aggression. You are not reacting. You are defining standards. That is masculine containment. The third discipline. So here is the third discipline when a woman cries. Do not argue with emotion. Regulate it first, then reason. Emotion must settle before logic can land. When calm returns, that is when you clarify misunderstandings. That is when you address exaggerations. That is when you defend your position, calmly. But during the storm, you anchor. You translate. You contain. At this point, you may have seen yourself in the stories above, sometimes weak, sometimes strong, and sometimes not knowing what to do in love. But it is those moments that make us real and worthy of respect. If you feel the same, please click like to let me know you are here, accompanying me. And if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, don't hesitate, because every day I will share more stories and new lessons, to help you have a calmer view of love. Now, let's move on to the final part, where we will touch on deeper things. Part 4. The intelligent man does not withdraw to punish or protect his ego. There is a mistake more subtle than arguing. More damaging than trying to fix. More destructive than panic. It is emotional withdrawal. Not the calm, grounded pause of a centered man. But the cold shutdown of a wounded ego. When a woman cries, some men do not yell. They do not argue. They do not defend. They disappear. Their face goes blank. Their voice goes flat. Their eyes lose presence. And in that moment, the room becomes colder than any shouting match. Let me be clear. Silence can be strength. But silence can also be punishment. And women can feel the difference immediately. The ice wall reaction. I've done this before. She cried. I felt accused. I felt misunderstood. I felt tired of being the bad guy. So instead of engaging, I emotionally shut down. I told myself, I'm staying calm. I'm being stoic. I refuse to engage in drama. But if I'm honest, I wasn't calm. I was resentful. I wasn't centered. I was protecting my pride. There's a massive difference. A stoic man regulates emotion. A wounded man suppresses it. Suppression always leaks later. Why withdrawal feels like abandonment? When a woman is crying, she is emotionally exposed. In that vulnerable state, your presence matters more than your perfection. If you shut down, what she experiences is not strength. She experiences abandonment. And abandonment during vulnerability creates a fracture in trust. You may think, at least I didn't yell. But emotional absence can cut deeper than raised voices. Because it signals, you are alone in this. And once a woman feels alone in emotional moments repeatedly, she stops coming to you. At first, that seems peaceful. Fewer arguments. Less crying. More quiet. But that quiet is not harmony. It is distance. The Stoic standard of presence. Seneca wrote that true strength is not in avoiding hardship but in facing it with composure. Composure is not disengagement. Composure is staying present without being consumed. When she cries, the intelligent man does not roll his eyes, look at his phone, walk away mid-sentence, cross his arms and emotionally close, use silence to intimidate. Those are avoidance tactics. Avoidance is fear in disguise. The difference between pause and punishment. Now let's clarify something important. There are moments when you need space. If the conversation becomes heated, it is wise to say, "I want to talk about this. I need 10 minutes to clear my head so I can respond well." That is mature distance. That builds trust. But disappearing without clarity? That creates anxiety. The key difference is intention. Pause says, "I want to handle this better." Withdrawal says, "You don't deserve my engagement." One is leadership. The other is ego defense. Why men withdraw? Men withdraw for three main reasons. They feel overwhelmed. They feel unfairly attacked. They fear losing control of their anger. All understandable. But intelligence is not about avoiding overwhelm. It is about staying grounded through it. When you shut down, you teach her something dangerous. My emotions are not safe here. And eventually, she will stop sharing them. When that happens, intimacy slowly dies. Not because of conflict, but because of emotional distance. A lesson from experience. There was a relationship where I mastered arguing calmly. I mastered not apologizing too quickly. I mastered not fixing. But I made one critical mistake. When things got intense, I emotionally exited. I would say very little. I would keep my tone neutral. But inside, I was closed. She once told me, "When you go quiet like that, it feels like you leave me alone in the room." That sentence hit harder than any accusation. Because she was right. My silence wasn't strength. It was avoidance. And avoidance is not stoicism. It is fear of discomfort. The fourth discipline, stay present. When a woman cries, the intelligent man stays present. Not reactive. Not dominant. Not defensive. Present. Presence looks like eye contact, slow breathing, open posture, listening fully, speaking calmly, even if you disagree, even if you feel misrepresented, even if you are tired, you remain engaged. Because leadership in love is not about winning moments. It is about maintaining connection under pressure. Boundaries without withdrawal. If the crying turns into manipulation or disrespect, you still do not withdraw emotionally. You state boundaries clearly. I'm here to talk. I'm not here to be attacked. If it continues, I'm going to step away for 15 minutes. We'll continue when we're both calmer. Notice the difference. You are not vanishing. You are structuring the space. That builds authority. It shows. I can handle intensity. But I won't tolerate chaos. That is masculine stability. Why this matters for attraction. Here's something most men miss. A woman feels safest with a man who can remain emotionally available without being emotionally controlled. If you argue, you feel unstable. If you fix, you feel anxious. If you withdraw, you feel unavailable. But if you remain present and regulated, you feel solid. And solidity is attractive. Not because it dominates, but because it stabilizes. Emotional courage. It takes courage to stay in front of tears. To not run. To not defend. To not freeze. To stand there calmly and say, "I'm here." That is not weakness. That is emotional bravery. And very few men practice it. The fourth rule. So here is the fourth rule. Do not emotionally withdraw when she cries. Stay grounded and engaged. Silence can be powerful. But only if it is filled with presence. Cold silence destroys trust. Grounded silence builds safety. Part 5. The intelligent man does not betray his principles to stop the tears. Now we arrive at the deepest layer. The most dangerous mistake. The one that slowly erodes a man from the inside. When a woman cries, the intelligent man does not betray his principles just to restore temporary peace. Let me say that again. He does not abandon his standards to silence emotion. Because the moment a man trades integrity for comfort, he loses something far more valuable than the argument. He loses himself. The temptation of immediate peace. When tears rise, tension fills the room. Your nervous system wants relief. And the fastest way to get relief is simple. Agree. Apologize. Promise change. Back down. Even if you don't mean it. Even if you know you're right. Even if it violates your values. In that moment, peace feels more important than truth. But temporary peace built on self-betrayal becomes long-term resentment. You may calm the situation tonight. But tomorrow, something inside you will feel weaker. And she will feel it too. Why integrity is the core of attraction. Epictetus taught that a man must decide who he is, and then live accordingly. Not depending on applause. Not depending on approval. Not depending on comfort. In love, this becomes critical. If your opinions shift every time emotion rises, you become unpredictable. If your boundaries dissolve under pressure, you become unstable. If your standards disappear to avoid conflict, you become unreliable. And reliability is the foundation of trust. Trust is the foundation of attraction. Not charm. Not money. Not words. Consistency of character. When compassion becomes capitulation. There is a subtle line between empathy and surrender. Empathy says, "I understand that you're hurt." Capitulation says, "Fine. I'll change everything so this stops." The intelligent man knows the difference. If he is wrong, he owns it fully. Without hesitation. Without ego. But if he is not wrong, he does not apologize for existing. He does not apologize for having boundaries. He does not apologize for having standards. He does not apologize for truth. That steadiness may not immediately stop tears. But it builds long-term respect. A story of hard growth. There was a moment in my life when a woman cried because I refused something she wanted. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't unreasonable. It simply did not align with my values. She cried. She accused me of not caring. She questioned my love. And for a moment, I almost gave in. Not because I agreed. But because I wanted the discomfort to end. Then I asked myself one question. If I say yes right now, will I respect myself tomorrow? The answer was no. So I stayed calm and said, I understand that this hurts you. But I can't agree to it. It doesn't align with who I am. She cried longer. But something changed. The dynamic shifted. Because she realized I could withstand emotional pressure without hostility. That is power. Not loud power. Not aggressive power. Quiet power. Why self-betrayal is dangerous. Every time you abandon your principles to calm tears, you train two people. You train her to use emotion as leverage. And you train yourself to fear emotional intensity. Over time, you become hypersensitive to conflict. You avoid difficult conversations. You anticipate tears and preemptively surrender. That is not love. That is fear-based management. A Stoic man does not manage emotions. He manages himself. The highest form of strength. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to be disturbed by the actions of others. Not because others are unimportant. But because your character must not be controlled externally. When a woman cries, it is a test of your inner architecture. Are you rooted? Or are you reactive? Do you stand in truth calmly? Or do you fold under pressure? This is not about dominance. It is about identity. If you know who you are, tears do not shake you. They move you, but they do not move you off-center. Love with spine. There is a myth that strength and tenderness cannot coexist. That is false. The strongest men I know are deeply compassionate. But they are not easily bent. They can say, "I love you." And in the same breath, "I won't compromise that." That balance is rare. And that rarity creates deep attraction. Because safety is not found in softness alone. It is found in consistency. The final discipline. So here is the fifth and most important discipline when a woman cries. Do not betray your principles to end discomfort. Stay compassionate. Stay calm. Stay present. But stay true. Because when you remain aligned with your values under emotional pressure, something powerful happens. You stop fearing emotion. And when you stop fearing emotion, you stop being controlled by it. That is freedom. The transformation. If you master these 5 disciplines, you regulate yourself first. You do not rush to fix. You do not argue with emotion. You do not withdraw. You do not betray your principles. You become something rare. A man who can hold emotional intensity without collapsing. A man who can love without losing himself. A man whose presence stabilizes instead of reacts. And that is Stoic love. Not cold. Not distant. Not dominant. Grounded. Steady. Unshakable. Most men try to control women's emotions. Intelligent men master their own. And in doing so, they create relationships built not on fear, but on strength, respect, and truth. Conclusion. A woman's tears are not the problem. They are the mirror. When she cries, you see yourself clearly. You see whether you are ruled by fear or guided by principle. Whether you react or regulate. Whether you collapse, control, withdraw, or remain centered. Most men think the goal is to stop the tears. It isn't. The goal is to remain solid while they fall. Because tears are temporary. But your character is permanent. If you panic, you teach her that emotion controls you. If you argue, you turn pain into competition. If you fix, you treat her like a problem. If you withdraw, you create distance. If you surrender your principles, you betray yourself. But if you stay grounded, truly grounded, something powerful happens. You become safe. Not safe because you always agree. Not safe because you avoid conflict. But safe because you are steady. And steadiness is rare. In a world full of reactive men, the man who can hold emotional intensity without losing his identity becomes unforgettable. That is Stoic love. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is disciplined compassion. You listen. You understand. You stay present. You stand firm. And in doing so, you show her something deeper than comfort. You show her strength with heart. Because at the end of the day, when a woman cries, she is not testing your words. She is testing your center. And the intelligent man? He never leaves it. Thank you for watching the whole video. I hope that today's sharing about love will bring you new perspectives and help you gain valuable lessons. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your loved ones. I am very grateful for your companionship, and hope that each video will help you get closer to a happy and lasting love. See you in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful and inspired day.